Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. I'm not even in the mood to do it. Not even in the mood to do it. I can't even pretend. What is going on? Guys.
Guess I don't have to ask how you're feeling today.
I'm disappointed.
Oh, no.
I am not.
You're not mad? You're just disappointed?
Just disappointed.
No, you should be mad, too.
I am not John Allen. I can't take it anymore. I am, like someone who wants to be part of the solution, resolved to be part of the solution. So I'm not him today. But when you get smoked by teams week after week after week, it is disappointing. Because, you want to know what my point is on this? The Colts are 7-5.
Mm-hmm. Right. They lost their quarterback week, 4?
Who everybody said was a project and they wouldn't be good because of it.
Right. Gardner Minshew.
Uh-huh. They got Gardner Minshew throwing the ball to Michael Pittman. That's their best receiver.
Backup running back, too.
Backup running back. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody.
Cut an all-pro linebacker last week.
That's right. Their best, one of their best corners was gambling. They had to get rid of him. Remember that? They had to get rid of him.
It's barbarian. Yes,
yeah, they had to get rid of him. They have a couple of players you've heard of. Most of them you don't, and they might make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Like it's those things. Or Houston.
Yeah,
Houston.
Sure. Yeah.
Or look at them, and I go, there's no way their roster's better than ours. Like, it's just not. Like, well, I'll hear out that, like, C.J. Stroud is way, way, way ahead of the curve, and that's why, they're having the season that they're having. Mm-hmm. But, like, give me a break. Like, they picked where they picked last year because they didn't have a lot on the shelf. We played them last year, and I'm like, they could be better with Stroud if he's good, but they're not going to be good. They might make the playoffs.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Green Bay might make the playoffs now.
They are hitting their stride, actually.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot better.
LaFleur, still undefeated in December.
LaFleur, baby. He knows what's up.
Just another one of those coaches.
Minnesota's had 58 different things go on. They're still hanging in there. Mm-hmm. Might make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, this is really, when you compare it, or even just like, go look how competitive the Cardinals are with a bad team. Go look how competitive they are. Mm-hmm. This is, I don't know that there's an explanation for it other than this season went sideways, and it appears that nobody was going to be strong enough to galvanize the room to make them play better. Right. Like, losing is losing. Like, okay, if they had lost it, like, I expected them to lose yesterday. I expected them to lose in Dallas. They're better teams. Okay, right. Fine. Like, you don't lose like this.
Correct.
You don't lose like this.
Correct.
In the NFL, these scores don't happen very often. It's happening to them every week.
They have hit.
It's not aberrations either. They're just getting crushed.
No, they have hit.
Getting destroyed.
Yeah. They've hit, unfortunately, the Jay Gruden level of quit. Where now they're not just losing, they're getting the brakes beaten off of them.
Yeah.
And then you had...
Oh, by the way, Jay, who made a nice tweet yesterday saying, which I thought was funny, but like...
that the culture would be the
difference. I thought
the
culture would be the difference. It was this bad when you were here, too.
That's right.
You were fired when we had the damn good culture game where FedEx Field looked like Foxborough that day. Yesterday looked like the Clevelander somehow. I don't even know how that happened.
Yeah, well...
That was the shock of all shocks, was seeing all Aqua in there. I didn't know their fans were capable of doing that.
I brought like 15 of them. But anyways, what I would say on that note is I knew this was kind of coming 2 weeks ago when I saw how cheap tickets were going for. This is what's happening now in the NFL. Once you see a ticket price go to a certain point, and then that's why I love where we live. We have 3 airports. So all of a sudden there are all these options to get here, and it happens. It happens fast.
But the weird part is they're really good. And like I said last week, I go, it is possible. Well, after seeing the 49ers, I may revise that. Yeah. But, it is possible the last 2 weeks we've played 2 teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, that is very possible.
Sure.
The way that they're both playing.
I think you have to add one thing on them, on Dolphins.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening with the Lions right now. When you've had these dormant fan bases that finally look legit, people decide, it's time to start hitting the road. And that's what I think yesterday was.
But the weird part is, though, if you go watch the Lions home games, they're already there.
Yeah.
Go watch the Dolphins home games. There might have been more Dolphins people yesterday here than there are at their home games.
Right, but
that's the part that surprised me. Like, the Lions going to these other games don't surprise me. They show up for their home games en masse and always have, which is why now that they have something exciting to cheer for, it's not surprising they've hit the road to do this.
Yeah, but look at this
fan base. The Dolphins fans aren't even going to their home games.
Look at this fan base, though. People don't go to FedEx Field, but they play in Atlanta, and all of a sudden it's a freaking Hail to the Redskins chorus happening in the crowd.
This has been a trend everywhere. Like, I say this every time we go places. I'm like, you'd be surprised how many Commanders fans are here, and it's not just I'm sure there will be a lot of them in LA. Watch.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Watch.
That's always a stadium that gets taken over.
Yes, watch. There will be, because there's a lot of Washingtonians that live in Los Angeles who have this opportunity to go see them play. Even amidst all this, there'll be a lot of burgundy and gold there. It's weird. But it won't be like that.
Right.
Like yesterday, the whole lower level was aqua.
Yes, correct.
I was looking around going, where am I? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
Dan Marino came out and they went crazy. They went crazy. Our young fans don't even know who that is.
That's correct, yes. That's right. Who's that?
Did you see the guy in the clown suit with the Del Rio sign on? Did you see him?
No, I didn't see that.
There was a guy in the lower level in a full-on bozo clown suit, makeup, hair, the whole thing.
They already fired him.
I know, with a Del Rio thing on it.
Are you celebrating that?
He must have felt stupid yesterday when on play 3, we decided to go man-to-man Quan Martin on Tyreek Hill.
He should have Sharpied Ron Rivera instead. Because then at least it makes sense.
I don't, should we even talk about the game? And what is there even to say? Like, they got destroyed.
Well, no, there's a couple things we need to unpack.
Sure. Which parts?
This simpler defense, playing man coverage on Tyreek Hill that somehow ends up with Quan Martin on him one-on-one.
Okay.
The first drive of the game.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm laughing because it's insane. Like, you can't double cover him because he's the fastest guy in the NFL, and you let it happen the third play of the game.
I hope London doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but by the middle of the first quarter, when we went to one of the breaks, he took his headphones off and just threw them. He was like, I can't. He's like, I just can't. He's like, I just can't. He's like, I can't watch this happen. He's like, I don't understand. And he kept saying it over and over. He goes, I'm not letting that guy beat me. I'm not letting that guy beat me. And he goes, but they're letting him beat us.
Yes, exactly. And then they went right back to it. What are we doing here? London's right. Stop letting the best player on the other team beat you when you know that they're the best option. I would have been fine if they went to Achane on that pass because he was wide open too.
I know. Well, I mean, this is...
And they had the roller coaster thing locked and loaded, ready to celebrate, knowing they were going to score.
They're what I like about them is they're fun to watch because they're very inventive and they really execute. And they have these very fast players. So they hit you on these things. The one thing that might hold them up long term is Tua doesn't really move that much, can't really run, and in recent weeks, if you actually pressure him, which we didn't, but if you actually do that, they want him to make a quick decision and throw the ball, and he's actually quite accurate when he has times. He's devastating, and with these guys, they get so much separation, it's deadly, right? But when he doesn't, he either takes a sack or he throws a pick or he clutches, and he's not going to run. And this has become the norm for us. We're incapable of getting pressure. We did not have a sack yesterday. We haven't caused a turnover in a month.
That's absurd.
In a month.
That's absurd.
And think about it, Geno was really struggling coming into the Seattle game. We played Tommy DeVito. Couldn't get a turnover. Couldn't get one single turnover against them. And yesterday, Tua, he threw 2 picks the week before.
That's right. Yep.
He threw picks the week before that, too, against the Raiders.
Yep.
He took a lot of sacks against the Raiders, took a lot of sacks against the Jets. We defensively are literally incapable of doing anything well. Anything. I mean, literally anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Name the one thing on that side of the ball that they do well, and it looks bad against high-functioning offenses like Dallas and Miami, but it looks equally as bad at times against Seattle and the Giants.
Seattle, Giants, the Bears.
The Bears, the Giants. This is as woeful a performance collectively by a Washington defense that I can remember.
What I don't understand the most, actually, though, is every team is doing the same thing. How are we still... That Bears game was week 4, right? Correct? Week 4?
Well, it was week 5.
Week 5?
We had lost to Philly, and then 4 days later played them.
They played the Bears, and you and I talked about it the next day. The Bears came out knowing they were chucking it deep.
Yes.
And they continued to do it. And that's how they got up so fast
This
on
is
them.
everybody.
And yes, and then
people play tempo on us.
We're in week 13, and Miami's coming out and doing it, but they're doing it with Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Why is this? How are they getting beat the same way?
Tua missed a couple deep shots.
Yes.
Dallas did too.
Yes. Dallas was trying it all game, and it didn't hit until the second half.
The Dolphins did too.
Yeah.
They went on one drive. They threw 3 shots on the same drive. And I looked at London. He looked at me, and I'm like, oh, my God. They don't think we can cover anybody.
Because they can't.
They can't cover anybody.
Because they can't. The game plan hasn't changed for any of these teams. How has it not been changed?
Frankly, if they wanted to score 70 again, they could have.
Yes. Absolutely.
If they wanted to do it again, they could have. They ran the ball a million times.
McDaniel gave them mercy at the end when all they did was keep running the ball.
They ran the ball every play.
They scored anyways.
Yeah, they ran the ball every play.
They knew what they were doing.
Yes, they ran the ball every play.
Right.
Just about.
Right.
Then they put Mike White in.
Right.
And ran the ball every play with him.
Exactly.
It's demoralizing. It really is. Like, I keep waiting for, all right, it's really bad, but it's got to turn around. Like, look at Denver early in the season. We lit them up bad, lit them up. Right. And then they had that Miami game where they got embarrassed. They gave up 70 points to them. Embarrassed. Like, that's an all-time score to give up. They had 8 rushing touchdowns, some crazy number against them. And then they looked like the way we looked yesterday in our locker room. Look where they are now. Like, they were a play away yesterday from being basically in the playoffs because I don't know whether it's the coach or the team leadership or somebody went, aren't we an NFL team with, I don't know, Pro Bowl players here? What are we doing?
Right.
And nobody stood up and did that this year. That's the part I think that's really gotten me. Like, this team has started slow 4 straight times under Ron Rivera. It was October and November where they wake up and they go, enough already, and then they win some game you're surprised that they win. Then they at least tough out a few wins by winning these close games, and then you're not going to out-physical them. And you may have better players than them, but they're not getting smoked like this. Mm-hmm. This is a total just uncle.
Yeah,
we're done.
Uh-huh.
The signs of it came very early to me, and now that we're here, I think it is worthwhile to go through it because I said this from the get-go. That I didn't like the setup.
Right.
I just, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't pretend to have the answers. And it's sports, and I don't pretend to know better than the coaches or the GMs or the players, ever. I never pretend that. But I've covered this, been around it, and been intimately close to it for a very long time. And the way it was set up going into the season, I described it as a tinderbox. That what they've done here, it's a big bet. The way they've set everything up. And if things don't go well for it, I could foresee it not going well at all and potentially blowing up because I've covered this and been around it too long to know the things that are red flags for a locker room going awry.
Yeah.
And I don't know who decided to set this up this way, whether it was, Rivera's thinking we had to do this or collectively, or I don't know how they thought about it. I know it was all very, very difficult because there was a sale and they didn't know who the owner was going to be, or even if they did, it wasn't, done until the spring into the summer, and then it wasn't finalized. So I get there are some of these things I'm going to talk about were a little out of their hands and a little unusual, but let's just start from the beginning. Like when you install a young quarterback like that in a year of transition, the first thing that's going to happen is, 1, you better be right about it, okay? 2, you have to assume there's going to be some major ups and downs with something like that. I don't care how good he is. They're just going to be. So that was a big bet. And it's the one part that in the end, I feel like they've largely been validated about, although that's turned the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Not on him. I don't want to blame him.
Right.
But his play and numbers and metrics have all decreased significantly. Yesterday to the point where if Terry McLaurin can't have a single catch and Jahan Dotson has 2 for 23, you're not doing it right.
That's right. Exactly.
And I don't know if that's him or Bieniemy or the structure of the offense or whatever, but you ain't doing it right.
Yep.
So much so that the unflappable McLaurin is saying in the locker room, like riffing how upset he is.
Right.
That's as upset as I've ever seen him. There should be no scenario by which he doesn't have a catch in the game. That's crazy.
The quote, if you missed it, was,
Crazy.
I ran a lot of cardio today.
Right.
Which he just doesn't ever go off like that.
Yeah.
And not that he went off.
He didn't. He didn't do what Allen did, which
Right,
I'm going to get
correct.
to in a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, right.
So they go with that. They do it under a new offense. They give authority to the offensive coordinator in a way that he hasn't given authority to anybody, right? Like he's always let Scott Turner run the offense, but he publicly told them when he wanted them to do things differently.
Right.
He didn't do that with Bieniemy. He empowered him. It never made a tremendous amount of sense to me why this was set up this way. Like, what is going, like all along, we're all have conspiracy theories of who's it putting him in here and for what reason? And if he's signing a short-term deal when there's new owners coming in, why is he taking this job? And why is he agreeing to coach Howell? And what makes sense about this?
Yeah, right.
We don't know the answer, and maybe we'll get the truth to it. Like, it could just be what they said. Ron wanted a change. Everybody was sick of Scott. They did want to make a change. They went and got a very high-profile guy out of a place that's had a tremendous amount of success. He has deserved an upgrade in his positioning, clearly. So they gave it to him, and he took it. And it could be as simple as that, or it could be something more, and we don't really know.
Right.
But that, with the young quarterback and a bad offensive line, was always okay, that's fine, as long as the other side of the ball that we assumed was going to be the part that they could count on was going to be reliable. And that's the part, and that's why I keep saying for weeks, the season is the defense. The defense was supposed to be better than this. It didn't have to be great again, but it had to be really good. They went and drafted a playmaking, ball-hawking corner, undersized, to go in with this defense on the idea that they would create more turnovers, which started with the idea that they would have a pass rush, which they don't and haven't had. And now this guy, I don't want to kill him because he's young and he got burnt by A.J. Brown. Welcome to the NFL.
Yep.
He's, I believe them when they say his technique's been off and they had to give him a reset and they let him, get his sea legs, and he is a rookie and I don't want to crush him. Like, I feel like let's give him a chance to come around. Like, great players have bad moments and then you never know. It catches on at some point. I hope that's the case here. They have 6 interceptions this year. 6 in 13 games. 3 of them came in one game. 1.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
They haven't caused a turnover in a month. Their vaunted pass rush has been non-existent the entire year. Even when Sweat and Young were here, their pass rush win rate was better, but they weren't finishing and they weren't getting a ton of sacks.
That's right.
Neither one of them had them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If Sweat was having the gangbusters year that Payne had, they would not have traded him.
That's right. Yep.
I know for a fact there was a lot of people that didn't want to trade him, but the choice was made and they moved on. But he also wasn't having a Daron Payne year.
Right. The compensation was correct on that one too. I mean,
they also, frankly, defensively, are not creative.
Yeah.
And haven't been.
Yeah, obviously.
They're not.
That's been the number one gripe since the first month of the season.
They're not. They're not.
They expected to show up. They expected to show up and be this great defense, and then when it wasn't going well, they still just expected to show up and have things change. That's the most frustrating part.
They are slow to change. They have been for 4 years. Slow to change. And then the other part of the setup that bothered me more than anything was, and it materialized at the trade deadline and is materializing now, is when you have this many players on expiring contracts in a year of transition, you're asking for a problem. Because at some point, if things aren't going really well, agents are going to get in these guys' ears and they're going to start talking to them about what the future is and what they need to do. And you need to get yours and you need to protect yourself. And if you don't think you're being coached the right way, then you need to do it this way. And you need to say this or do. It's just a barrel of problems.
Right.
And some of that I have a hard time blaming or blaming Rivera on, because I think his hands may have been tied on some of these things. That's the one that I don't want to kill him over, because I'm sure he would have liked to have extended Cam Curl or Montez Sweat, but they didn't have the authority to do it. So they didn't. That said, there are a lot of other guys on expiring contracts. Too many, in my opinion. I red flagged this in the spring. I'm like, You're not going to pick up Chase's fifth-year option? You have both of them. That's your fault.
Yep.
You have both of them now on expiring contracts. You're not going to extend Cam? Okay, maybe it's out of your hands. Like, I don't know. Okay, but that's a dangerous thing to do. Now you got 8 other starters who are on expiring contracts? This better go well, because if it doesn't, you're seeing an unraveling. And all of those things added up to me as a tinderbox. It just took a match, and the match came very early. To me, it was the Buffalo game.
Right.
Not just because they lost or because of what the score was, but because of what they said after it.
Yeah.
They were 2-1 when that happened. The score looked bad. It really only unraveled in the fourth quarter, but the score looked bad. Okay, they lost to Buffalo. At that point in the season, no one figured Buffalo to be a 500 team. Everyone's like, what's the shame in losing to Buffalo? Everybody loses. They're in the playoffs every year. Who cares? Go play Philadelphia next week. Not if you went in that locker room after and you listened to the players. I started to get shook after that. I went, why are they saying things like, what kind of team are we going to be in week 3 when you're 2-1?
Yeah.
You're 2-1.
Right.
What kind of team are you going to be? What do you mean, what kind of team? So that was the first hint of, oh, this isn't good.
When their panic is worse than the fan base's, it's always a little
Who was
uneasy.
panicking after the Bills game?
Right,
I walked in
exactly.
that locker room going, all right, the score's bad.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to say the right things here, but I think they'll be measured about it. They weren't.
Yeah.
Then they turned around.
Don't forget either, Ron didn't even let it go the next day. That's when he said he had the Josh Allen quote of, he was in their heads. And I was like, bro, it's Monday. You don't need to say that.
Hey, all you had to say was, listen, we were down 2 scores start of the fourth quarter. We didn't get our offense going.
It unraveled.
We're going to do some self-scouting. And then it unraveled on us. And you know what? We lost to a good team, but we got another challenge next week, Philadelphia. As it turns out, they should have gone for 2 because apparently, like, that broke them. It was by far not close, easily their best effort of the season. They woulda, coulda, shoulda won. They took them down to the wire, and they lost. I mean, I thought at the time they should have gone for 2. Whatever. They didn't. They lost in overtime anyway. Guess they could have won in overtime, but they could have lost. The idea that they were gassed, but then would go play more football made no sense to me. You just one play for the game, but whatever. And they came out of that, and it was over.
Right.
That's when it was over, and the Bears game was proof of it.
Right.
4 days later, they chose not to play very hard. They chose not to be ready for it. They chose not to be able to get over it. And from that point forward, I think my line was, I'm shook, because it's going to be hard to predict what they're going to do from here on forward. Because if you're going to do this in a national spotlight game at home against a terrible team, then you're capable of being really bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. And I'm optimistic that it's not going to be the case. And I've seen Rivera turn things around before, but that one shook me. And so I'm at this point now, off of those few games, now not surprised. But clearly this happened early. Why? Because of the setup. When they said in the summer, when Rivera revealed, players were complaining about Bieniemy's style and then said what he said. And I know what he meant. He didn't say it the right way, and it came off the wrong way. And he tried to clarify it, but it was too late. Like, the big takeaway, though, from me out of it was, because once I understood what he meant by it, which he meant it more positive than negative, it just came out the wrong way. And he does this sometimes in these press conferences when he kind of goes off script, if you will. The big takeaway, though, from me was, but wait a minute, aren't you still the head coach of this team? Mm-hmm. We have heard throughout the season they've wanted him to rein back in some of that they have not loved the way they've been coached on either side of the ball at various times, and they need him to be the intervening force, and he chose not to be this year.
Yeah.
So here's the setup. They went and hired somebody, I'm not really sure, what the total purpose was and why he wanted to be here as well, because it make a lot of sense. They went with a young quarterback that you knew was going to be up and down. They did not in free agency address the offensive line in a way that fixed it. They went and did the same thing they've done over and over, bargain basement shopping to try to plug holes with, yes, veterans, but not Pro Bowlers.
Yes, right, exactly.
And when you don't have a stalwart at least what, this is all well and good to go get Nick Gates if the right guard's a Pro Bowler.
That's right.
Or the left tackle's a Pro Bowler. And you go, listen, we can't pay everybody, so we think he's good enough, to finish off the line. But you were asking him to potentially be the best player of the offensive line, and you're paying him $2-3 million a year. Like when I hear people complain about Cody Barton, when we know that they need a middle linebacker, you get what you pay for here. Like, I actually think for the price they paid for him, he's actually been pretty good. But he's not going to live up to what anybody's expectations are because they want him to be Fred Warner. Well, he doesn't make $15 million a year.
Right.
This team does this. They try to plug holes with bargain shopping, and they've hit on a couple, but largely it is what it is. They are average players that made that money on the market because that's what they are, but they're asking them to do more than they're capable of.
That's right. Right. And when you're bargain bin shopping, as you just said, yes, you can do it when you hit on one of the other players in said unit. They haven't hit on, I'm not going to say they haven't hit on anybody because they have, but for the most part, they miss more than they make when it comes to personnel. And
on
so,
the free agents or the draft?
Yes, both
the free
of them.
Agents.
Both of them.
I think the draft's been mixed. Like, I don't know what's going on with Jahan. I think he's a hit. I think he's good. I think Brian Robinson's really good.
Okay.
Like, I think you can go through. Cam Curl's been really good. Derek Forrest, unfortunately, got hurt. Been really good. Like, I think they've been better drafting than I think people give them credit for.
Okay,
like,
Jahan was such a hit.
This year with Forbes, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Jamin is not a first-round linebacker.
Correct.
I mean, like,
Correct.
that's obvious.
Jamin's not a first-round linebacker.
He's a player, but he's not a first-round
right.
linebacker.
Once again, it was him and Sam Cosmi. They both drafted them for different purposes, then moved them into different roles. And eventually, I think with Cosmi, it's been fine, but it hasn't been what they wanted him to be, right? Then you go to Butler wasn't like a high pick, but that one hasn't worked out. Quan wasn't even supposed to play, but why did you draft him anyways?
That didn't make it. This draft is a whole different conversation of what. Give me the reasoning behind a lot of this.
Right. And so I'm just saying, like, to me, it felt like there's no clear-cut plan on what they wanted to do with their personnel. And all of a sudden, they're digging themselves deeper because instead of saying, well, we missed on that draft, so now we have to spend a lot of money to go make that better.
Yes.
They're not. Like you said, they're bargain bin shopping. So you can't miss and then not try to correct it. It's almost like they're like, well, we're in so deep. Let's see what this will do.
Yes.
And it's throwing crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. Seemingly.
They're putting Band-Aids on major open wounds.
Yes,
is what
exactly.
they're doing. Like,
yeah.
This is 2 years in a row that they tried to fix their offensive line by, taking mid-tier price point guys.
Right.
And so that's why, like, when everyone yells at Gates or Wiley, I'm sitting there going, you get what you pay for here. Like, they're not paying $20 million a year for a tackle. They're paying half or less than that. Guess what?
Yeah.
You're not getting a Pro Bowler. Well, they don't have any other Pro Bowlers. It's all well and good to pay that to fill a spot that you need filled when you have other guys that stand out as Pro Bowlers. You don't have that.
Right.
So this is where the setup went wrong. The draft, to me, didn't make a lot of sense, but I was hopeful.
Oh, by the way, there's one. There's one.
Yeah.
You traded up for a long snapper, and that's not working.
No.
I'm just saying on that one, you better be right with that, and they're not even right on that one.
It just, it's the shifting all the responsibilities and being less of the forefront head coach, I think was a problem, right? It was a problem for the players, clearly.
Yeah, clearly.
Betting on a young quarterback who was inexperienced, that's the one that's kind of worked out. But you knew that would have to be bumpy. And you've openly admitted that would be the case, especially with a new offense and now a very different, strict type of discipline that the players openly recoiled to in a lot of ways. So you had to get them back on board. And then, I'll get to Allen in a moment because the real disappointment, and the draft goes crazy, free agency, once again, you didn't really fill the holes that you needed, or you did, but you didn't do it in a big way to try to really fill the hole. Like, look at the Eagles today.
Yep.
The Eagles went and got Shaq Leonard.
Yep, exactly.
Off of that loss because they have a hole.
Right.
And they went and did it. And this team in the offseason doesn't seem to try to go after these things. The couple big swings that they've made in the 4 years have not gone very well with Wentz or William Jackson. But like everything else, it's been hit or miss with these guys. They got, they've done very well with Logan Thomas, bargain signing. Very well with McKissick, bargain signing. And there's a couple other examples of that. But there's others like Barton who actually, if he was their backup middle linebacker, I'd be like, that's a heck of a signing that they've had. But because he has to start, and because the other linebacker has been problematic at times, it looks like a glaring deficiency. Well, it's as if you didn't see that on your own, which I think is the hardest part of this whole thing.
I think one of the weirdest things, too, that I don't really quite understand is things haven't been going right with this roster. And even, in years past, especially, I would say like the Jay Gruden years, they would take flyers on guys to see if it would hit. Like they would sign a veteran wide receiver or sign a veteran linebacker and just see if some kind of change, putting them on the roster for a few weeks and see if that would happen. It would be enough names that we would at least mention it when it happened. There's no roster turnover with how bad they are. it's kind of absurd they aren't taking flyers on a few guys just to say, let's see how it works with this guy. And then if it does work, you extend them a year or whatever you need to do. But I remember, they would sign like a Perriman, like a first round wide receiver that didn't work out for the Ravens. They would bring him in for a couple. He was funny. He was like 4 days, but guys they would bring in. They brought in Reuben Foster for all of whatever that BS brought in.
Till he got hurt, right?
Till he got hurt, right? Like they were actually making a few moves behind the scenes where you'd go, that guy hasn't worked out there, but maybe at the bottom
talented.
Of yes. And I'm not even seeing any movement. They think their guys are the best guys, and they're clearly not.
Yeah, no. So the setup was rough. It was a tinderbox, and now it's blown up.
Correct.
Blown up and bad. And I want to talk about Allen next because the part that should have been reliable has been the least reliable part of the whole thing, and he's a big part of that. So I want to talk about what he said today next. Very much the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, let me get to the comments that John Allen made today. He does a weekly visit with the Junkies. And in his interview this morning, I'm just going to read this quote that was retweeted today, where he was asked if he thinks about leaving Washington.
Yeah.
And he said this, 1,000%.
Okay.
Put 58 exclamation points on that, I suppose. And he said, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I play this game to win, and I would love to win here for sure, but I want to win first and foremost. So that's always going to be at the front and center of my mind, and everything I'm going to be doing in my career is going to make sure that I'll have an opportunity to win. Okay, on one level, I don't blame him, okay?
Right.
I want to be clear about that. I don't blame him. On the other side of it, though, I do want to say this. This is the worst defense in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
Worst scoring defense in the league, and maybe not most yards, but they got to be creeping closer to it by the week. But they have, in my opinion, the worst defense in the league.
Sure.
He is the captain of that defense. I see him give a pregame speech every single week. I see him do interviews with the media on behalf of this defense. I don't see him saying a single thing of accountability whatsoever for his part in why this is the worst defense in the league at all. Like, he got paid 2 years ago. He's the captain of the team, one of the spokespeople of the team, and his side of the ball was supposed to be the side that was the reliable part. I wasn't having an expectation they'd be top 5 again, but I did not have an expectation of this either. So somewhere, 15 and up felt like about right to me, because replicating top 3 is very hard to do, but I did not expect this, which is just, this is abhorrent how badly they play collectively. And then secondarily, exactly what kind of Pro Bowl season is he having?
Sure. No, absolutely. He hasn't been good.
So to sit there and say publicly, I want to be somewhere where I can win.
Yeah.
What are you doing to help this team win this year? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a fair question to ask back, because I started saying this in week 4, week 5. I'm like, I think people need to start looking in the center of this defensive line where they've spent a lot of money on 2 supposedly star players who last year were both in their own ways, potentially all pro players, maybe the best tandem in the league, both deserve to go to the Pro Bowl. And I almost argued at some point in the middle of the year that John Allen was best at his position, at least for this year, over Aaron Donald. He was having that kind of year. It's not happening this year.
Right.
Not even remotely close. And that, to me, is the story of the season, that those 2 are not nearly as impactful as they have been in the past. So at what point, I hear you, I understand what you're saying. For all the reasons I said earlier that I never liked the setup of what was happening this year, I'm a little confused at why you're a victim here. Because actually, he's supposed to be one of the answers. And that's the part to me that I think is disappointing to hear him say it. Terry saying, he didn't say anything like this, but Terry saying whatever he said off the cuff yesterday, which is really off script and out of character for him, but him saying it off of getting no opportunities yesterday and not making a catch, and the last few weeks, they're not able to profile him. I totally get why he'd be frustrated.
Sure.
Because he's trying to be the answer. I'm trying to figure out where John's been the answer this year, because frankly, I don't see that. And that's why I'm sitting here today going, really? I get you're frustrated. I want to win too. But I also think that you were anointed as one of the guys that was supposed to bring in a new era of winning. If you're not part of that solution, then I can't believe you're the one raising your hand saying you have a problem with everybody else.
Yeah.
We're the one that placed the responsibility on you to help us win, and now you're telling us you're fed up.
Right. Exactly.
What's his responsibility here?
Yeah. I mean, the fact is you have been good here. You've been great here.
Really good.
Actually great.
Deserving of the contract you got. And you played better your first year off of it, frankly.
Right. Exactly. And I'll tell you this. The part that actually bothered me more, I saw, the quote that you just read, but it was actually after the game frustrated me a little bit more than today's. Because today, honestly, let's be honest here. He probably has thought about it. Who hasn't when you're on bad teams? Really, do you want to get mad at him for being honest? No, I never want to be. I never want to be bad. But
and I want to reiterate, I understand why he feels frustrated.
Correct. But mine was actually after the game where I forget who asked him, but basically asked what kind of happened with that defensive performance. And I believe his quote was actually, well, it's to be expected. To almost say the defense has been bad all year, so we expect it to be bad again was like...
Aren't you supposed to be the person changing that? Why are you giving the pregame speeches?
Right, your D coordinator got fired. That's usually supposed to fire everyone up and go, oh, maybe we should clean our act up a little bit. And it's expected.
This is full-on Beal Wizards, brah.
Right, exactly.
Commanders, brah. Really? You guys were the number 3 defense a year ago.
Right, exactly.
Well, you were a big part of that. We didn't change anything on your side of the ball. In fact... we drafted people high to help you guys get better. There were no defections from any of it. Like, nobody's different.
Right.
You explain to me why it's so bad this year.
Mm-hmm.
You going to blame Jack? Because I haven't heard you do that yet. You going to blame Ron? Really? Are you? Or I don't know. Like, we haven't had a pass rush the entire season. We haven't caused a turnover in a month. At some point, like, I'll complain about Ron and complain about the roster construction and complain about the setup and maybe even complain about some of the schematics because, frankly, like what I saw Miami doing was way more creative than what we've been doing on offense this year. And maybe that's, but McDaniel's only in his second year there. It's not like, oh, he's been there 5 years.
Right.
He hasn't. Like, he's only been there 2 years. They implemented this. Do they have better, more talented players? Okay. Like, I'll buy that. Significantly outside of Hill, who's ridiculous.
Of course.
No. What, Jalen Waddle's better than Terry McLaurin? I don't think so. Like, since when? Like, why would you think that? Is Mostert better than Robinson? Maybe. Sure, I guess. That much better? No. Their offensive line's way better. Their quarterback's been around the block a lot longer. But, like, I don't, Hill's special. But the rest of it is, okay, well, go look at what they're running and how they execute. We don't do that. We don't execute at all.
No, not at
you
all.
See that ridiculous pick 6 we had yesterday? It's ridiculous.
Right.
He was either not blocked or he knew what was coming or all of the above.
Right. And Sam threw it anyway.
Yeah. The quarterback didn't recognize he was there. He went unblocked. They knew exactly. He stood where the ball was going.
Right.
Why would that guy know where that was happening? Yeah. It's hard to believe. And, the last thing I really just want to say about Allen, and here's the disappointment. He's a captain. He's from here. Mm-hmm. I know, and he's admitted he's had a direct line to ownership. And not that he's had any say about anything, but they've asked him his opinion personally about how to make things better around here, only to turn around with 4 games left in the season and say, I'm not sure I even want to be here. Like, do you understand the privilege that is, that they want your opinion, that they value you that way, to turn around and say that I'm not really sure I want to be here when this organization has paid you what they paid you and the new ownership has been told you're a leader on the team and now you go on the radio and say, I'm not sure I really want to be here anymore? I get you're frustrated you're losing. I'm frustrated we're losing too. I don't want to call games where you guys lose by 30, but I'll tell you what, I do want to be here. I want to call those games next year. I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to be I just don't want to be part of this anymore. Really? Like, you have a direct line to ownership. You know how rare that is for any player to have that they actually call you and ask you your opinion about everything because they value it, and now you're not even acting like a captain, and you're brushing off, oh, well, we could expect to play like this. Really?
Right.
Why aren't you doing something about it? You're the Pro Bowl player on the team. You're not embarrassed by this defensive performance? Get everybody to play better. Right. Where's the locker room leadership?
Second part of that, too, is he said, I think the quote was like, I don't want to sit through another rebuild. Dude, no one's actually saying you got to rebuild. You got 3 picks in the top 40 next year, most likely. You're
the one going off saying Sam Howell's great.
Right.
What rebuild are you talking about?
Correct.
That's the one. You keep saying the positive things about him to the media.
Right. So, as far as I'm concerned, too, a year or two of a retool and a new head coach and a new GM, anything can be turned around in the NFL these days. So that was frustrating as well to say, I don't want to sit through another rebuild. Nobody's saying they're going to rebuild, man. We've seen the talent that's on here. Clearly something needs to change, though, and I think we all know what's coming.
I don't know. I'm dedicated to this organization for better or worse, but I am. Like they're my family. I want to see them succeed. I want to be part of it, and I want the people in the locker room to feel that way too. I understand it's tough and embarrassing and very difficult to lose, and I would never pretend to understand what that feels like to actually be on the field. Because today, I get a lot of weird texts and a lot of weird questions and a lot of weird looks and all this stuff, but everybody knows I had no impact on the outcome whatsoever. I'm just a casual observer who happens to have proximity to it and very fortunate to have it. But when the going gets tough for me, I don't know, in anything, I typically am trying to be resolved to have a solution and be part of that solution. This was just disappointing to hear it from him.
Right.
If some other player who hasn't been paid, right, who isn't a captain of the team, who isn't from here, and who isn't respected by the head coach the way that he is, or respected by previous ownership or new ownership the way that he is, I'd hear him out. But him saying it was really disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Like really disappointing. All right, let's take a quick break. Very much the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, I want to play a clip that I heard over the weekend from the former moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, who was part of the one of the panels here locally. I think it was the Sports Business Journal thing over the weekend called Deal Makers, where I guess they asked, I don't know how this came up, sports came up with him, but he's a big sports fan. I think he used to go on Tony all the time, right? Didn't he, Chuck Todd?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, so he's a big sports fan, and he's lived here a long time. He's a political junkie, obviously, with Meet the Press, but he's been a big fan of the teams, as a lot of the political talking heads are. Anyway, we're not winning a lot of games these days around here, with the exception of the Capitals. So Chuck, of course, goes full broad brush political spectrum of what's wrong with sports in D.C. Listen to this.
I have a theory, and it's just a pet theory, that it's really hard to recruit free agents to want to play for D.C. area teams. Because of the toxicity of the politics. And if you've noticed, all the major franchises here, we are now the worst performing four major league city, I think, right now in the country.
That's
I don't think
wrong,
there's another city that's close, right? We were doing so well in 18 and 19, the Caps, the Nats. Shoot, I think even the football team made the playoffs one year. And that period, the Mystics won a title. I mean, it really actually looked like it was all coming together. We had Game 6 for the Wizards. We're the king of Game 6. And then it sort of all collapsed. But one of the common denominators is I think it's tougher for us to get free agents.
Okay. I mean, it's just...
Shut up and debate, Todd, but anyways.
In our world, we call this a bad take.
This is an all-timer.
It's an all-timer.
It's also insulting because you're lumping the locals in with the people that aren't locals either.
So, all right, number one, let's just take the four major teams. None of their circumstances are comparable whatsoever.
Correct. Yeah.
So to sit here and go, the reason why they're all losing is for the same reason is ridiculous. It would be like, Chuck, it seems like since you know the Mystics won a title, that you are actually a little locked in here. I think you would know that what the Nationals did a couple years ago is not what the Commanders are doing, is certainly not what the Capitals have been doing, and is semi-close to what the Wizards have been doing, but 2 years later.
Right.
And after being told over and over and over that Brad ain't the guy. So none of this is comparable. Number two, the years that you're talking about where we were great and winning championships was during Donald Trump's presidency.
That's right.
So why didn't we have a problem winning when we were in the literal most divisive political time of this country's history outside of the Civil War?
Right.
So, we were winning when he was the president of the United States, but we can't win now because of toxic politics that, oh, by the way, I don't even think exist here the way that they exist in other places.
That's right.
So if this were to be true on any level, which it's not, it's stupid, it means that, red states would perform better than blue states, or blue states would perform better than red states
or have certain rosters
because of politics.
Or have certain rosters that skew one way, which isn't the case.
So the Heat have a good basketball team because they're psyched about the fight with Disney? What are you talking about? What does that even mean?
He knows they signed Patrick Corbin in the summer of 2019, right?
Right.
But the summer before, you know what I mean? The free agency time before 19.
During the political time.
Correct.
Suzuki wore a MAGA hat to the White House.
That's right.
It's just, this is my problem with content in general, especially in news. It's all hot takes that are broad brushed that don't even really make a lot of sense in the real world. It's get offline, dude.
Right.
Like, go get into the real world for a second. Do you think anybody in the Wizards locker room thinks that it's bad politics is why they're 3-16?
Right.
I'm going to go with this because they don't have a viable center or a star or a person who's a serious player who handles the ball the bulk of the time.
Also, I want to put a pin in Chuck's theory here it's the end-all be-all of the argument. In 2015, the Nationals signed Max Scherzer as a free agent, and he might be the greatest free agent literally of all time, maybe any sport. And they did it because he was a free agent. And then I also want to point out to my team, to the Capitals, if the political climate was so toxic and they didn't like it, why have they gone on to re-sign for over 10 years Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom, John Carlson, Braden Holtby was here for a while. They re-upped TJ Oshie. They re-upped Tom Wilson. They re-upped Evgeny Kuznetsov. Literally the entire roster has stuck around through all of this. That's a terrible take.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And if you wanted to argue maybe the Wizards or something because the NBA players are more active on that or something, I guess you could try arguing that, but to put them all in the same category, what? What are you talking about? Elena Deladon was a free agent. She was a free agent.
Right.
Or maybe they traded for her. I don't remember. Either way, they got her because she wanted to come here.
Right. You mentioned the Mystics.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Right. What are we doing here?
Wayne Rooney came here.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or the same thing would be like, well, everyone says San Francisco's a hellhole if I watch television. Somehow the 49ers so the Warriors are really good.
That's right.
How'd that happen?
Somehow the XFL has kicked the can twice here and is already saying the next iteration, we're fine because we're one of the best performing markets.
It's full on insane.
This was
it's a terrible take. It makes no sense.
I think you'll agree with me here. Same exact energy as Wilbon calling this not a sports town a couple years ago before they won all the titles.
Right.
This is the exact same energy. And it's an insult to the fans that actually like the sports here.
They can't sign free agents. What are you talking about? Watch when the Commanders, who have $90 million in cap room, offer this money to free agents in the offseason that people sign it. And you know what's not going to come up? The politics.
Well, the funny part about that, too.
Nobody's going to care.
The funny part about that is Dan signed free agents all the time.
All the time. What are you talking about?
He always got the best one because he paid the most money. It doesn't matter.
In other news.
It's a bad one.
It's terrible. In other news, George Santos is on Cameo. So you can get for $150.
Oh, wow. That's half the price I thought it was going to be.
I know.
Do I get him to do rejoins for the show?
Please. Please. It's for my 51st birthday. I would like a message from George Santos.
Oh,
I want him to say in it, though, that he is the play-by-play broadcaster of the Washington Commanders.
What if I got him to do
if I could get him to say that.
What if I got him to do Happy Hanukkah? Happy Hanukkah for you.
Happy Hanukkah from the real play-by-play broadcaster of the Washington Commanders, George Santos, or whatever my name is. It'd be amazing. All right. I'll be right back. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
The Bram Weinstein Show on the new ESPN 630.
All right. I feel better now. Okay. All right. I got it all off my chest.
You let it all out?
Let it all out. Feel better now. Ready for the bye week. I will warn you, I'm going to be out the rest of this week.
Yes.
I came in for Monday. I'm half glad I did, half glad I didn't.
No,
off of what happened yesterday.
You had to after a game.
Yeah, after what happened yesterday, I was,
Yes.
I was like, oh, God, I was just get out of here now. But glad we're here. Got that off my chest. It's very freeing. It's freeing to talk, let your feelings out. Makes you feel better about everything.
Right.
The rest of the week, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to take my little annual bye-week vacation, which for 3 years in a row has happened in December, NFL. I'd love to do it a little earlier one of these years. If you guys want to stop making us wait till week 14, that'd be great. But Here we are. So I will be out the rest of the week.
Just a programming note, you're going to hear a lot of Freddie Coleman and Harry Douglas who do the ESPN national show.
I met Harry for the first time. He was part of the ESPN call of the game in Seattle, I think.
Yeah.
And I met him.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
So you'll hear a lot of them. If something crazy breaks, you'll hear me.
Yeah.
But for the most part of things...
I hate to break it to you guys. Nothing crazy is going to break. Ron's going to be here.
That's right. Well, I meant more. I meant more overarching because we don't know what could happen. Maybe the Wizards fire Wes.
No.
Oh, wait, that's not going to happen. He got extended. That's right.
Or maybe Ime Udoka will call LeBron the B word again.
You can say bitch. That's fine.
Oh, you're allowed
to.
to.
You can say that on terrestrial radio.
Let's see. Let's do a little Week 13 review.
We were on a few of them.
A few of them.
49ers we were on. They were begging you. They were begging you to take the Eagles on that one.
I picked them, but I didn't think it'd be that. That was... They had almost 500 yards against them. They smoked those dudes.
Did you see some of the scenes from the stands for that one?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Eagles fans tearing their jerseys off and stomping on them.
I don't understand it. They're 10-2. This is...
They were in the Super Bowl last year.
They're in the Super Bowl. They might be again. They're 10. They are still, oh, by the way, the 1 seed. So as it stands right now, the 49ers would have to come back and play them again to actually get to the Super Bowl. And you saw that happen last year. So I don't know, guys. Maybe you ought to chill out a little bit.
I got one of these every year. I have a whole list of these now. Mike Vrabel wins 2 games a year because he's a good coach. Belichick wins 2 to 3 of them because he's a good coach.
Yeah, he might be off on that one.
Well, 2 to 3. I didn't say 4. 2 to 3, right? Then you've got certain home games. Like the Saints probably win 1 to 2 games because of the Superdome home field advantage, right? Lambeau, they probably win 1 or 2 games. Eagles fans have now shot on my list. There's one moment a year where they're soft. Definitively, for some reason, you lose a game in a way that makes you forget that you are still actually good and you're soft. It's not a thing of you're throwing batteries at Santa. You just, for some reason, lose your minds and act like babies for one game. Because next week they're going to return and be fine. I don't know, actually. If they lose to the Cowboys, that fan base might actually lose their mind.
Let me ask, here's a good question for you. Here's a sports radio hot take question, okay? Is there a better franchise over time to have rooted for than the San Francisco 49ers if you were a fan of theirs?
No.
I don't think there is.
There's a stat today, since the current playoff model was enacted in the 70s, they have gotten the 1 seed more than any other franchise in the league.
Yeah.
That's more than the Patriots.
They look good.
It's more than the Patriots.
They've had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back-to-back. Mm-hmm. They were a dynasty in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It carried over into the 90s. They've had short periods of time where they're not good. They somehow fix it.
Yep.
They got to the NFC Championship 3 times with Harbaugh before they stupidly fired him.
Yeah.
Right, because they couldn't handle him anymore, which I think we're all learning now. There's a shelf life on that guy, right? We're figuring that out.
Sure, but he got a second-round quarterback. Mm-hmm. To get them to the Super Bowl, who was dynamic in that entire time frame.
The organization was smart enough to kick out one of its ownership group basically because they were getting in the way of it. Mm-hmm. They've turned around here. They have an incredible system going right now. And it's at times you think of it as almost glam and glitz, but they're tough.
Right.
And they have been forever.
Sure.
As good as Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Steve Young and now Debo and McCaffrey and all the glitz around stuff like that. Defensively, they are historically tough, too. Ronnie Lott and Dion. And now they've got a defense that totally they didn't shut them down. They held them they got 330 yards on them, but for what they have in the first half, 6 points.
Yeah, right.
They ended up scoring 19, but the game was over.
Not only that, it was
they got dominated, really.
Not only that, it was the way the Eagles acted, too. Did you see, they were pretty much trying to say this was their most important game of the year because they wanted to prove themselves, I guess.
Yes.
But good teams don't normally do that.
These guys don't need to. They're the reigning NFC champs.
Yeah.
They're the team that's lost 1 game in their last 28 or whatever it is. They needed to, and I agree. I think that they put too much on this. The Niners were we're going to come there and kick your ass. Then did. Let's see what happens to the Eagles next week.
Right.
Because Dallas is rolling. Dallas could have beat them. That was an even game. They could have beat them the last time. They didn't. It was their own mistakes why they didn't win at the end. Let's see what this rematch is. Let's see if the Eagles are shook. Because then If they go and get stomped somehow by Dallas, which I don't think will happen, but if that were to happen, then the Eagles fans can start ripping the jerseys up if they really want to.
Sure.
But off of one game, y'all are spoiled, man. Like, Jalen Hurts is like 26-2 in his last 28. Right. The Philadelphia Inquirer put out a piece saying Brock Purdy would be a god here if he was the quarterback. Hurts is really good. And I'm sitting there going, you just got to the Super Bowl with this guy, and I'm sorry, he didn't lose it for you. Go look at his stats. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, you're 10-2 again. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I don't know.
I told you, for 1 week a year, it seems they get soft.
They got shook. I don't know why they got so shook.
They get soft.
And then, of course, moment of the year is Big Dom, the security guy. Puts his hands on Dre Greenlaw after Dre Greenlaw got a personal foul for whatever hit he put on somebody. And then Dre Greenlaw's like, get off of me. And then he gets tossed, which I thought was frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
He didn't initiate that with that guy. That guy initiated it. I did love that Philly gave him a standing ovation on the way out. Big Dom is probably the most famous person in Philly.
I was going to say, there's memes of him, so...
There's Big Dom shirts being made at Breaking Tea right now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I thought, long live Big Dom. So I'm glad I know who he is, what he's all about. I love all of that now. But the NFL, in all seriousness, needs to come down hard on the Eagles organization. See, the referees were able to get him off the field, which is a little ridiculous that the head of security had to be taken off the field, because I'll hear out like that's not the greatest, that's not great for the Eagles. And he's there for a reason, and a good reason, not for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But he had to be removed because he can't get involved this way. They also can't penalize the Eagles, though, for what he did.
Right.
And therein lies, I think, a rule change, because I think the organization either needs to get fined or they need to have a rule change. Like, if somebody who is not a player gets involved, from your your literal organization with a player from the opposing team, you're going to get penalized, or you're going to get fined, or you're going to get something, because it felt crazy that a linebacker that starts for a team got kicked out. He didn't initiate that contact.
Yeah, right.
He's like, get off of me, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I didn't like that.
It's also one of those points where there's replay on so many things.
Yeah.
Someone from the league should have called. Like, New York has called on numerous calls this year on, by the way, some of the BS ones against us, but New York should make a phone call on that one and say, hey, he didn't start that.
He didn't. That was the part when they kicked him out. I was like, I hope that they reverse that and say, you get the 15-yard personal foul, but we're not kicking you out of the game.
Exactly, right.
Which I think would have been the right thing to do.
Right.
That said, the 49ers have clearly placed themselves in the conversation of try and beat us. Mm-hmm. And best team in football and all of that. And now the Eagles-Cowboys game next week is huge. If the Cowboys lose, then I think everything will be right with the Eagles. They'll have swept them, and they'll probably win the division, and that puts Dallas in a wild card position, which is going to be difficult for them because they'd either have to go through San Francisco, Philadelphia, or both on the road. So it's going to be very difficult. Cowboys knock them off, considering how they've played at home this year. Well. We might be staring down potentially a Cowboys-49ers NFC title game, and it could be in Dallas. Mm-hmm. They're going to need the 49ers to have a slip, though, because the 49ers whooped them too.
That's right. Yep.
So right now, Niners and, I don't know, what, Dolphins? Maybe, right now. And at that point, I'd have a very hard time seeing Miami win that game, actually.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Miami, I think, is functioning really, really, really well. But the Niners look like a machine. The Eagles were nervous about them last year. Right. They were really nervous about them last year, and they got lucky what happened in that NFC title. I mean, it's not they didn't deserve to win, but we don't really know what would have happened. They lost all their quarterbacks. So, that was over when that all happened.
They did what they were supposed to do in a game like that.
Yeah, they had to win that game. All right, let's see. Colts beat the Titans 31-28 in overtime. They score on a game-winning touchdown in overtime. Gardner Minshew throws for 312. They're 7-5, 5-1 away. This is one of the teams I look at when I look at our record this year and go, you know what? If you're just competitive and you're in every game, you can be like this.
That's right.
Your season can go like this. Because we've had no-shows multiple times, and specifically over the last few weeks, we look like we're an abomination. But our roster's not worse than them. It's ridiculous.
Yes, correct.
It's ridiculous. Good for them. Darts and company. Look at Darts. The revenge of Darts. I know how to make a football team.
Well,
I don't know how to make sausages. I know how to do football teams.
Well, when you
and I'm a rich billionaire. I can do whatever I want, unless you're with the police who don't like drugs.
Well, when you get a real head coach, they're Jim.
Yeah.
Because that's what they have. They have a legit head coach. So there you go. Shocker, your record gets better.
That's the former Eagles guy.
Right.
Steichen.
Right, exactly.
You know, like, he won't get this, but if they ended up with 11 wins, you'd have to put him up for Coach of the Year.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Who in the world would have picked that?
Absolutely. Yes.
In the dud of the day, the Chargers beat the Patriots 6-0. I don't know what's more ridiculous, that they lost at home 6-0, or that the Chargers only scored 6.
Right. In the second quarter, by the way. It wasn't like 2 fourth quarter field goals.
Is this the worst game in NFL history? Maybe.
Well, there's probably a 0-0 tie somewhere.
So the stat on the Patriots is they are the first team since the 1938 Chicago Cardinals to lose three straight games while giving up 10 or fewer points in all of them. And that, the 1938 Chicago Cardinals, the passing leader had 300 yards for the season.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no forward pass
Right.
back then. That's when pro football might as well have been rugby. Glorified rugby is basically what
Correct.
it was. Chargers win 6-0, so they're alive, but I'm sure they're not psyched after winning that
Right.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's one of those, like, I can't even believe we won,
Right.
probably.
This is my first week of now definitively saying Belichick is not leaving the Patriots now or being traded.
I never thought that was happening, but I was first on the train of I don't believe this.
This is, though, now they have finally positioned themselves that they can draft one of the high quarterbacks. Like right now they're sitting at the 2 spot. So
right, so they'll either get Drake May or Caleb Williams, or for that matter, the LSU guy. It's hard to know.
Sure.
He's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
Right.
It sounds like it. At
And
least.
to the Patriots fans that were all bitching about Bill earlier, if you have a legit quarterback and the defense is playing like this, you're back to contending again.
This is what I said about them when we played them. I go, actually, the Patriots defense is starting to look like a Patriots defense again, and it's played that way. Right. Actually, over the last 6-7 weeks, this is welcome to the world when you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, right.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. Let's see. Lions beat the Saints in what figured to be a good one and was. Lions got out to a huge lead. Saints had a big comeback, fell short, 33-28. So the Lions get back on the winning track, and at 9-3 are still very much a factor for a high seed in the NFC, albeit after seeing the 49ers, it's hard to figure.
It's a different level.
Again, though, like they just need a couple slip. Like, look, Philadelphia's playing Dallas next week. So one of them's got to lose. Mm-hmm. Lions keep winning. They're going to be kind of in position potentially if they can get a slip up by the Niners along the way to get the 1 seed. That's a possibility. I still think in the end, I don't think that'll end up happening, but they're clearly going to win that division.
Correct.
So they're a playoff team, and they'll have at least a home playoff game. And the Saints, I mean, they're as maddening as anybody in the NFL. They have a better roster than 5-7, and they're in a division that they may win anyway because that division's really bad. They still have a shot to win that division.
Yeah.
So
Carr's in concussion protocol now, though.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
In what I think I called the score Falcons Jets to be 9-8. It ended up 13-8.
13-8.
These two teams are terrible.
It's
terrible to watch.
And then
it's terrible to watch.
The Zach Wilson stuff today.
Amazing.
Another turn. Because we haven't talked about it.
They said that they're considering at 4-8 going to a 4th quarterback, but the initial is to go back to Zach because the Tim Boyle show is working out about as well as the first Zach run did. And apparently, according to Diana Russini, he's not too keen on going back in now.
Right. Did you see the follow-up from Diana on that one?
No.
Oh, hold on one sec. I don't want to mess up the quotes here because Diana does work hard for her reports. Aaron Rodgers reached out to Zach Wilson in an effort to advise him to resume the starter role, but at this time, Wilson remained apprehensive due to injury risk.
Oh.
So even called.
So he's going. Here's what he and his agent are going. You're not going to be here next year.
Yep.
Clearly.
Right.
We can't get you injured because someone else is going to take a shot on you because you're the number 2 overall pick, and someone's going to think that you can come in and they can fix you.
Or you could just be a backup too. Like that's also a definitive possibility as well.
Right. And it's like, I don't want to be a backup there again with Super Achilles over here. Like, I'm out. I'm out on Super Achilles. So they lose. They're 4-8. Rodgers go change his tune big time about coming back now that they're 4-8 because it's over for them. They're not going to make the playoffs, obviously. Shock of the day is the Cardinals won in Pittsburgh, 24-10. You were actually on that. You said you would have taken the points with them.
Yep.
Kyler Murray didn't have a big day, 145 and a touchdown. James Conner, former Steeler, I guess he had it circled on his calendar, 25 for 106, 2 touchdowns.
Mitch got hurt too, though, so I think
Kenny.
Sorry.
Hands.
Mitch.
Hands got hurt.
I said
Hands got hurt.
Hands
Mitch
got hurt.
came in.
Yeah, that's right.
Steelers are still 7-5, but this is one of those. When they don't make the playoffs, they're going to look at that one and go, "That's the one that got away." How did we lose that one? Cardinals moved to 3-10. I know everybody around here is going, "Go, go, 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 baby!" Right. You take the bus. Take the bus, because we are a couple of shocking results away from New England and Arizona from stinking up the joint enough to get to number 2.
Right, exactly.
Frankly. Let's see. Texans beat the Broncos 22-17. Came down to the wire. Russ threw a pick at the end. Yeah, I think I picked the Texans too. These are, that felt a little bit like a playoff game. Texans are 5-2 at home, so that means they don't have much left at home. So they're going to have to do a lot of it on the road the rest of the way. They're going to need some help tonight, which they probably won't get. If they do, they can at least hang in there with Jacksonville. If Jacksonville keeps the spread, then they're fighting for a wild card. But that Arizona result helps them. The Browns losing helps them.
Yep, right.
So
exactly.
I'd actually, because of the way Stroud's going, I'd love to see him in the playoffs as a wild card. I think
totally.
It'd be fun to have him. So I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah,
so this result was like good for this is one of those good for the NFL.
Yeah.
If he plays Mahomes in the playoffs,
right. It's going to be huge.
Even if the Chiefs beat him, it's like, oh, well, let's get a look at what has this kid got.
No, absolutely. Like they're probably praying they make the playoffs because they want to market him more than anyone else too. They also, it's like moving on from Watson too. Like look at what they did. They traded that guy and they're right back in it as well. So
yeah, that trade is going down as one of the worst in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, well, because of the contract mainly.
It's a killer.
I don't think anyone blames them for taking a shot at a quarterback.
It was getting him the guaranteed contract.
Guaranteed contract and what he did, obviously. But the fact is that he sucks.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been good.
It's not all the weird stuff he did in the massage rooms. It's the contract.
Right.
The Rams beat them 36-19. Flacco started. This is scary because they put up 36 on the number 1 defense. Mm-hmm. We're playing them in 2 weeks. This was one of those where you go, hey, maybe we'll win a couple down the stretch.
Nope.
No Those dudes are in the playoff hunt now, too.
That's right.
Because 6-6 has you literally right there.
That's right.
So guess what? When we play them in a couple of weeks, that game's going to really matter for them. Great.
Off of a bye. All right, guys, refocus. Refocus to play this team.
So we couldn't stop Fields or DeVito. Yeah. How are we going to do with Stafford?
That's right.
Borderline Hall of Famer. Let's see how that goes. 36-19, they beat the Browns. So the Browns, like the Steelers, are... The Browns, because of injuries at quarterback, are sliding back here. Mm-hmm. Can they hang on? We'll see. Buccaneers beat the Panthers 21-18. That game was tight in the second half. Yep. It's one of those where, Todd, how do you not win? If you're at home against them, how do you not win? It's the Panthers are streaking towards the 1 seed, which is going to be the Bears, which will be very interesting when we get there.
Yep, absolutely.
When we get there, it'll be interesting. And then the night game was Packers over Chiefs. I was half on this. I'm like, you know what? The Packers are playing really well lately. Mm-hmm. They've kind of hit their stride now. The Chiefs' offense has been not great. Wonky at best. I know it's like they're playing possum, though. Like at some point, it's like, oh, look, they're good again, which may happen in January. We'll see. Packers playing well. It was Lambeau. I think I undersold this a little bit. Now I'm like, I wish I went on the limb and said, you know what? They'll upset them, because it actually was semi-predictable that they would, just the way the Packers were going. I always say this. It's not who you play. It's when you play them. And the Packers the last couple of weeks had really come around. So it was right there. And it was fun to see Taylor Swift lose in Green Bay. That was fun.
I was going to say, they finally lost with her in attendance.
Yeah.
And she went to Wisconsin for all of 6 hours.
She's ruining it.
She's ruining it.
Finally.
Stop it.
That's what Chuck Todd said. She's ruining it.
We can't attract free agents because of Taylor Swift.
That's right. We can't. Kansas City's going to lose because of Taylor Swift and her woke ideologies, says Chuck Todd.
Chuck didn't say that. I just need to say that. You were parodying.
So here's the Packers and the Rams, both at 6-6 now, both suddenly creeping up and potentially going to make the playoffs as well.
Right, exactly.
Oh, guys. How did this happen to us? Why aren't we in these
I
conversations?
love how you did a whole entire NFL recap and had to sigh and go right back to the Commanders.
It's so frustrating. So frustrating. I thought we would be at this point in the season where we'd go, let's see if we win them or not. We'll see how it shakes out. You know, I figured us to be around 6-6 right now. This is where I thought we'd be. 6-6, 6-7, hopefully 7-6.
Nah.
Then we're going to take that bye week. We're going to go to LA. Suddenly that Rams game's different than it was. Here we go, guys. Nope. I got John Allen, captain of the team, telling me 1,000% he's thought about leaving. And then the defensive performance where they get smoked again is predictable.
And a guaranteed losing record.
Wizards, bruh.
Oh, gosh. But remember, it's so toxic here with the politics. John Allen won't resign. Oh, wait.
What highlight bothers you more? Tyreek Hill one-on-one with Quan Martin or any Jordan Poole highlight where he's trying to do something nuts?
Good take. Man, that's tough because the Quan Martin highlight is indicative of everything that's wrong with the team right now. The defensive scheme hasn't changed in 10 weeks.
This guy we
This guy was
drafted high to not play, but then had to play against the best receiver ever.
One-on-one.
One-on-one on the third play of the game.
Third play of the game.
Like, okay.
But also, I was told Jordan Poole was a volume shooter, not an idiot like Nick Young. Actually, worse than I never saw Nick Young.
Yeah.
Getting paid, probably not tradable.
That would be since Jay Gruden did the culture tweet. Nick Young doing I thought the Wizards had their guy, huh? Tweet would be great right now. Perfect. Yeah.
Right. Man, that's tough.
Yeah. How's that pool party? Nick Young. Sign Nick Young.
Ooh. I still haven't answered the question because I don't know.
Can't answer it. Not answerable. That one, that's my two hot takes. Which one is, I don't even know, what was the question? I don't even know what was the question.
You said what is worse or what makes me more angry, watching Jordan Poole have joke highlights every night or Quan Martin getting burned by Tyreek Hill. I'm going Quan. And it's not on Quan, it's on Ron. It's because I'm watching a rookie safety that apparently wasn't supposed to play that you drafted in the, second round, right?
Cron. Can you do that? Q-R-O-N?
No, I'm not going to do that.
All right.
You drafted a kid that you said wasn't going to play, so we asked, why did you draft him? And never really got a good answer to that. And he's playing one-on-one against the fastest guy in the NFL.
Ever. He's a track star.
That is using the same plan we saw the Bears doing in week 4. It's week 13, by the way. One-on-one against him on the third play of the game. It's that one. Definitively that one.
Tyreek Hill afterwards kind of half-jokingly going, I guess you disrespected me. You're playing man on me.
Right, correct.
And I think he said thank you.
He said thanks for disrespecting me.
Thanks for disrespecting me.
Because he actually didn't want to, I guess, go full, I'm going to torch you. He said, well, those guys get paid too, and they're pretty good over there. And I was they didn't deserve you saying that actually for once. So, no,
Interesting
I go
choices.
Quan. I go Quan mainly because Wizards, bruh. They always are a laughing stock. So why would anything change anyways?
All right, get your hot takes ready. We got to do the college football playoff next, Paul. Brady, what's the show? ESPN 630, Sports Capital. All right, let's do it, Paul. Paul! All-time Paul Day. How you going to keep SEC out of them playoffs? Crazy.
They should have.
Don't make me come poison something.
Should have.
No, absolutely not.
I think they should have.
Absolutely not. Okay, let's start from the beginning.
ESPN bias to put the SEC teams in.
No.
It's ruining the college football playoff.
Okay.
Make college football great again.
The SEC.
The ESPN bias is ruining our sport.
The calls on Paul's show, had Alabama been kept out, would have been unbelievable today. In fact, I think I would have argued just simulcast it today. I want to hear it. I want to
theater.
Yeah, we're going to listen to that live just to see what's going on today. All right, so let's see. Friday night, Washington beat Oregon for a second time, finishing off an undefeated Pac-12 season in the last year of the Pac-12. That made them a shoo-in to get in.
Right.
I called that a win and in, and I still believe it was. If Oregon had won that game, I think they would have been in because Washington would have made the choice easy because they were undefeated.
That's right.
All right, so they're in. That was an easy one. Now we get to the other easy one. Michigan shut out Iowa 26-0. So Iowa did not surpass the 2.5 point spread that was their over-under for points in the first half.
I said under.
Let alone the whole game.
I said under.
Michigan wins. They go undefeated. They just beat Ohio State. You got to put them in. Connor Stallions, no Connor Stallions. You got to put them in. Those are the easy ones, I think. I think those are the easy ones.
I agree.
Here come the hard ones. Okay. Alabama beats Georgia.
Full Pepe Sylvia.
Here comes the problems. Texas wins big, as they should, against Oklahoma State because, as you know, they're back. Florida State just gets by. They don't have their quarterback. They beat Louisville 16-6. Don't yell at me at the characterization. It's true. Okay? They win. They go to 13-0, ACC champions, undefeated. Alabama beats Georgia. Now we got a problem. Are we going to literally put 2 one-loss teams in over them? And the answer is yes. And frankly, I still think there is one team that should be more mad than Florida State, and that's Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How are they not in? And I'm not trying to make a take here. Are you kidding? So they lost to Alabama. Mm-hmm. It's the first time they've lost in 3 years. Right. And I know you're not supposed to look at but come on. They had an undefeated regular season. They lose by 3 points to the team that you have in the playoff that hadn't lost in whatever and is a juggernaut dynasty. And they go from 1 to out? How's that fair? Explain to me how that's fair.
But how are you going to put Alabama in and not put Texas in because they beat them?
I agree. And I think this is why here's the thing. I think
that's why Florida was screwed. I mean, Florida State was screwed. I mean, there's no way they were once that happened.
Once Alabama beat Georgia, they were out either way, is my point.
Yes.
I think if Texas had somehow, this had happened before the Alabama game, but had Texas been in a very close game or somehow lost,
yes.
If they lost,
Correct.
They would have been out.
Correct.
But had they been in a 27-24 very close game with Oklahoma State, I think Florida State was out either way. I think it might have been Alabama and Georgia that both stayed in. I actually think Florida State fell behind all 3 of those teams if they're really being honest about it. Because how in the world, they're actually the one that I think ought to be more furious. They're the defending national champions. They were 12-0. They lost on a neutral site to a team that's in the playoff.
Right.
Come on. Really? The schedule they played was way harder than what Florida State played, and you know it. So, I don't know, man. On the pecking order of mad, I'd put Georgia above Florida State, honestly.
Yeah, they lost a game, though. How are you not going to put the undefeated team above them? I'm just saying. Just saying.
But it's unbalanced schedules is the problem. This is the old, or TCU last year, or right. Boise State from years ago when they were outside of the Power 5.
Who was it? Was it UCF too?
Yeah.
When they went undefeated.
They're outside the Power 5 and they're playing lower tier programs. They're not playing Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina. Come on. It's not a comparable thing. So to that point, here's Georgia's schedule this year. They beat South Carolina, Kentucky. They beat Missouri. They beat Ole Miss. They beat Tennessee. All of those teams are ranked. All of them. Florida State's schedule isn't like that. Florida State it's not their fault that the ACC is weaker, but they didn't play a schedule like that. They did have a very good win at the beginning of the season. They blew out LSU, which looks really, really good now. But at the end of the year, because their conference schedule wasn't that hard, frankly, it's not their fault, but it wasn't. I don't think the committee got this wrong. And in fact, I would have still thought, the Alabama winning forced them to put Texas in.
Correct.
They couldn't put Alabama in and
they
not
had to go together.
Texas
yes.
in, which says to me, actually, that if they're being honest, that number 5 is at Florida State, it's Georgia. That Georgia would have gone in if Texas was either in a very close game or lost. That's what I think.
Here's your actual strength of schedule rankings. Alabama played the 5th highest strength of schedule. Washington 11th, Texas 13th, Michigan 33rd, Georgia 37th, Florida State 55.
See, therein lies the problem Florida State had. Their strength of schedule wasn't very good. So I appreciate that they went undefeated. I also don't care that they were kept out at all. I've got no skin in any of this. Yeah. I don't really care. And And I'm sorry, you're not supposed to take into account that their star quarterback got hurt.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Sorry,
it sucks.
guys.
No, I think it sucks overall, but yeah, I mean, it's true. Because
Now-
then you're just sacrificing them to Michigan, and Michigan most likely beats them.
On their point of, but we won anyway, isn't this a team sport? Shouldn't we get in on our merits? I'll hear them on that.
Right.
Now, on the, we're going to sue you, which I think is very funny.
Now they really belong in the SEC.
Yes, we're going to sue you. This was interesting. Michael McCann, who does all the sports law stuff for Sportico. Could FSU sue over playoff exclusion, antitrust, fraud, negligence, breach of contract? Yes, 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 and yes. But, as I discuss in this article, the odds of a successful case would be low since FSU is part of the system that led to the outcome. I don't know what the committee was supposed to do. In the end, I think they picked 3 of the 4 correct teams. I think Georgia should have been in 2. It would have been at the expense of Texas, and it would have been ridiculous that Texas, they beat a team that didn't get in. However, they also had 1 loss, and it was to a team that wasn't amongst these rankings.
Right.
So, sorry, not sorry. That's what I would have done here. I think the 4 should have been Michigan. Okay. If we kicked out Florida State, I could hear an argument to kicking out Washington too.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Michigan, after beating Ohio State, I think it's hard. Undefeated Big Ten, it's hard. I think it would have been hard.
Washington beating Oregon both times, though, also,
Yes.
I think, definitively actually
That's what
says
did it.
they belong.
And
yeah.
I do believe that if Oregon beat Washington, they would have been in.
Exactly.
I think. But maybe not.
Maybe not, because they might have put in Florida State over them.
All right, so the 4
They
I
would have
would
canceled each other out. Maybe.
This is hard. I think if you really wanted to do the 4 that I think should be it, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, and
You can't put Alabama in without putting Texas in. You cannot.
Texas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're
So,
paired together.
I actually think I would probably, if you're going to kick out Florida State, then why can't you kick out Washington too?
I guess, but I mean, like I said, they beat Oregon both times. Like that, we're arguing in a circle here.
JJ Watt did a great tweet where he was like, emergency 16
I agree.
playoff.
I actually agree with that.
He goes,
Who says no?
Who says no? And he goes, Michigan and Washington undefeated. They get the top 2. The other 4 we've talked about.
Yeah.
Just put them all in.
Right.
And you know what? Who'd say no to that? And what the TV networks are going, do that.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Go ahead, do that.
Right.
We're
Exactly.
in. So I don't know. There was no right answer. This was always going to be chaos. The way it was leading up the last couple of weeks was always going to be chaos. I actually don't think that Florida State belonged over Texas or Alabama. That's just me, but that's eye test stuff. And had they still had their quarterback, I probably would have felt differently. And I'm sure the committee on some level was praying they'd lose to Louisville, so it would just make it easy for them not to put them in. Once they won some junky game, they got put in a bad position and they had to make a choice, and that's the choice they made.
Right.
Too bad, suckers. Or they needed Saban to lose again.
Georgia
winning would have made it really easy, too.
I'm just going to have an unbiased fan who doesn't have any skin in any game on these rankings because you're arguing that Georgia should be in.
That's what I would argue, yeah.
As my, like I said, unbiased fan, I'm sick of seeing Georgia in it. I'm fine with these 4.
Dude, they won 29 games in a row before the other day.
I know.
That's got to meet. And so all of the sudden.
But they lost to one of the team that was right on their back.
All of the sudden, they're not worthy.
Yes.
They won. This is the Eagles.
Bama took their spot.
This is the Eagles fans ripping their jerseys to shreds after losing 1 game of their last 30.
I'm sick of seeing Uga. I don't care. I'm good.
I don't know. Who are they playing in a bowl game? Because that ain't going to be pretty. Oh my God. They're going to kill somebody.
Hold on.
Maryland, by the way, getting Auburn in Nashville. That's a nice little vacation for you people if you're interested in that.
It's Georgia FSU for the Orange Bowl.
Oh. Ooh. That's an angry game.
That's, yeah.
You know what would be, if the committee gets validated if Georgia wins 52-7.
That's true. Yeah, I agree.
They just go, look.
That defense, though, because it's no joke with FSU, keeps it close and they win at the last second, people are going to be mad.
Largely, I expected them to kick FSU out. I did. So I wasn't really surprised. I know they have to go crazy and ballistic, and they probably should have been. The other great thing too is, did you see the reaction video from Michigan when they realized they had to play Alabama?
No. Oh, they were just like scared?
Yeah. There was like one of those. And then they're like, yay. They started clapping. But the audible response of, that's the one we didn't want of any of them.
Yeah, right. Did you see Liberty is taking on Oregon too?
Liberty?
Yeah, because they're undefeated too. They went 13-0.
As long as Bo Nix is playing, he's going to kill him.
That's the Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, good for them. Liberty got into the Fiesta Bowl?
Yeah, they let them in. Yeah.
That's an all-time payday for those guys.
Right.
Good for you guys. Congratulations.
Yeah, Oregon's going to smoke them.
Yeah, how about Maryland, though? Maryland got Auburn at the Music City Bowl in Nashville.
On the 30th. So that's a good New Year's Eve weekend. I mean, my God.
We looked up the schedule.
Yeah.
It was almost an all-time double dip. The Capitals are playing the Predators, but it's here.
It's here.
But it's here.
Oh, no.
I know. That would have been amazing, though. You could have convinced me maybe to go to that if we had both of those.
All-timer.